Ladies, have you been wanting to make a change, but you don't feel ready? Here's the truth. Readiness is a lie. The model of confidence for women is backward, and we need to flip it. I'm Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of a new book, Big Freaking Change. After coaching thousands of women, I discovered action gives us confidence, not the other way around. If we wait to feel ready, we'll wait forever. So if you're ready to get unstuck and step into the life you've always dreamed about, visit bigfreakinchange.com right now and order your copy. Welcome to the Big Freaking Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Moeller Poppitt, author of The Big Freaking Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Freaking Change. I'm your host, Cara Moeller Poppitt, and I'm so delighted to be here with a dear guest, Maria Conigliero. She is the daughter of third-generation Italian restaurant owners, learning hustle, service, and adaptability from a young age. These qualities served her well as she built and elevated her award-winning brand design agency, Inspired Studio, now on its 13th year. Over the last 2 decades, Maria has worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs, executives, and marketing directors to craft one-of-a-kind brand identities for businesses throughout the country. Maria engages with her clients, fueled by curiosity and creative problem solving, helping others to discover and communicate their authentic purpose. As a certified neuro coach, her work is much the same. She partners with motivated entrepreneurs and business leaders to define and design their version of success with intention, using a brain-based framework that rewires neural pathways through counsel and action. As the speaker, she inspires and motivates audiences to find their golden thread, showing them how neuroscience principles can help uncover their individual success blocker and rewire new beliefs for transforming their lives toward higher truths, greater alignment, and more balance. Maria is active within the business community where she resides in northeastern Pennsylvania with her 2 daughters. Maria, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Cara, I am so honored to be here and excited to celebrate your book launch.
Yes, thank you. It's been a wild journey. I think I probably need to reprogram my mindset. You know, it's interesting when you do something so big. It was a work in progress for 5 years, and then, you know, it got launched into the world and it made some great titles, and there's some really cool momentum, and all these cool things are happening. And I still have a family and I still have businesses. And so it's important that, you know, I stay true to my values and really stay aligned with my journey. But thank you, Maria. I wanted to talk to you about the neuroscience perspective on change. And maybe we'll start with that before I go into asking you about your biggest freaking change. So talk to me about change and what really happens in the brain.
Well, change is inevitable, which we know, and it is scary to our brains because our brains are wired for familiarity and safety. So when we're coming up against change, whether it's a change that we're creating or wanting to create, or it is happening around us, our brain is doing everything it can to get us back into its comfort zone. It's different for everyone.
Why do you think we as women, I'll talk about women first, and then we as a society really struggle with change, even though we're getting outside of our comfort zone, we want to predict our future, but we know change is happening in our lives. Like, what else is getting in our way in our brain?
We think between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day. 95% of them are happening in our subconscious mind. And our brain loves familiarity so much that day to day, we think 90% of the same thoughts day to day.
That's in my book. I talk about all that.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're literally hardwired to keep things the same. So our brain has come up with these really fancy ways of holding us accountable and keeping us within the data that it's collected over time and stored in its subconscious mind. So, what I love, the safety piece, right? So, our brain is our hungriest organ, consuming 20% of our energy and only taking up 2% of our body. It's our hungriest organ. So, when it's collecting data from the third gestational week on, it's collecting data from the outside world, and whatever gets repeated gets hardwired so that it doesn't have to consume energy to keep filtering billions of bits of information, right?
That is fascinating. Yeah, how you say it that
Yeah,
way. It's so true. So it must be so fulfilling as a neuro coach to rewire and help people rewire their thought patterns. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
absolutely. So a lot of times people will come to me and they're just feeling stuck, as every coach says that they help people, get unstuck, but really they're finding themselves self-sabotaging. And that's different for everyone. Some people love to procrastinate. Some people love perfectionism, imposter syndrome. And these things can come and go, right? In different areas and times in our lives. But it's when my clients are confronted with some really big change, the biggest freaking change, divorce, career change, maybe health, a health scare, or wanting to create a big health change in their life. Their subconscious mind is like, pump the brakes. This is not happening. I don't care what you say you want in your 3 to 5%. It is not happening. Sometimes this change, let's say divorce, for example, and as a business owner, you're thinking about business, you're thinking about your kids, you're thinking about money, you're thinking about finances, future, your employees, your personal health, your personal well being. There's so much to juggle, right? And that one change can create years of a speed bump for people if we're not careful. Because if we're thinking 90% of the same thoughts every day and we're not aware that our subconscious mind is pumping the brakes using self sabotage, we're going to try to use our 3 to 5% to willpower our way through. And that's when burnout happens. That's when we get overwhelmed. And that's when we make poor decisions. And that can last years. But why I love what I do is we can very quickly, and even quicker when you're going through big freaking change because your subconscious mind is super loud, we can very quickly find the fear, the source of the fear, and then using neuroscience technologies, repetition, basically, thoughts and emotions repeated over time become new beliefs. We can literally break those old hardwired pathways and rebuild new ones over a very short span of 67 days without willpower, without hustle, without grind. And you
Sounds
step
so
into your
delightful.
being. Yes. And everything just kind of, I hate to say it, it's simple. It's not necessarily easy, but with the right step by step process and with someone to hold your hand and guide you through it and hold that vision for you on the moments when it can be hard, you really can move through big freaking change with some enjoyment, with some freedom, with some sense of excitement.
Yeah, I love that I talk about this in the book that there's about 5% of people from my experience and research that actually enjoy change. Like it recharges them, it revitalizes them, whether it's positive or negative at the time. And you're one of
Yeah,
those 5% that
I
like
am.
it and you're excited about it. Tell me where that came from, and is that something that's just recent, or were you fundamentally like that as a child?
Well, I'm a Gemini. I don't know how much that plays into it, but I'm also a creative. I'm just
Yes.
naturally creative and I'm naturally extremely curious. And when I was young, I loved painting and drawing. And I would lock myself into my room and put on like classical music at the time. This is like the 90s. I like put in my DVD player, some like Bach or something. And I would just sit and draw. And I remember telling myself over and over, you can't screw this up. It's art. So I was a child and I just remember like if I made a mistake or what I thought was a mistake, I would think to myself, well, I could just make that mistake beautiful. I can make it work. And then I went on to design school and there was a class that was called creative thinking. And it was the same idea. Like there's always a creative solution. And then I went on to start my brand design and marketing agency. And now I have people paying me to solve problems, right? So you can't go to a client and say, there's no solution here. They come to you with a scribble outside the line. You have to make it beautiful. You have to work your magic. And so I think with all of that repetition, the creativity, and the open mindedness, I've come to love and appreciate the idea that change is inevitable and such a beautiful opportunity to create something that wasn't there before.
Yeah, and it's a perspective shift, right? I think sometimes change, we're scared of making a mistake, right? We want to have it perfect. We want to weigh out all our pros and cons. We procrastinate. I call it a perfectionism and procrastination loop where they're the same. Like, we're stuck in this loop. And I think even just the idea that there is no mistake gives us some permission to be, and it gives us some freedom, right, to choose. And I think just how you explain that really, really landed. Maria, tell me about your biggest freaking change, and if you ever felt ready before you made that change.
Good question. Well, because I love change, I'm always evolving. You've caught me smack dab in the middle of one of the biggest freaking changes of my life up until this point. I've had many, many changes. And was I ever ready? No, I wasn't ready. I do think I maybe had a belief somewhere, or a nugget of a belief, that there was something on the other side, and faith in myself that I could get myself through it. But ready? No.
And I know in business, so you own your own business, there's so many different changes. And when companies come to you for branding and their expertise, and you have to, put your creative thinking to the test and really come up with something beautiful in the making. I think so many times as entrepreneurs, we wait to feel ready before we take action. So we're waiting for everything to align. We're waiting for the perfect creation before we pitch. And sometimes in all the waiting, we miss the opportunity. So my core message in my book and in my keynote speaking is that readiness is not a state of being, but it's a feeling that comes after you take action. But all of us wait to feel ready before we take action, which keeps us stuck. And I believe fundamentally the model of confidence that we have in society is backwards. So we feel stuck in life, we wait to feel ready, we wait to feel confident, and then we take action. But confidence is a result of taking action. And so we develop our confidence by stepping out before we feel ready. So talk to me how that shows up in business when you're serving your clients. And you can talk about it from a marketing perspective, or also the clients that you work with on your neuro coaching.
Yeah. So part of the neuro coaching is a model, right? So technically it starts with a situation, and then we immediately have a thought about it, and it's usually subconscious and automatic. But a thought always precedes an emotion. Nanoseconds before, science has proven that a thought will always precede an emotion. Thoughts and emotions repeated over time become beliefs, right? Still deep in our subconscious mind. Beliefs influence decisions. I think a decision is at the core and the beginning stage of taking action, right? Not making a decision is the decision.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so there is a process that we go through with my neuro coaching clients. It's called decide in advance. So in a calm emotional state, I will coach my clients toward deciding what they're going to think, how they're going to feel, what actions they're going to take when a triggering situation happens in the future. So now they've already made a decision. And what I love about this word, it means to cut. The word decide, it means to cut.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yes. And so what I love about this is if you make a decision, you're deciding to cut all plan B, plan C, plan D. There's one avenue that you're going to take, and that equals action, right? I don't think you can make a bad decision. You make a decision, you act, you learn, collect data, and make a new decision, or decide to keep the decision you made in the first place. I think every day is a series of decisions.
What do you think makes people get stuck in their own way? So I love the idea of decide in advance. So when we're stuck with a decision in life or in business, I know it's our automatic subconscious that's reprogramming, but what else why are we the problem? Why can't we get out of our own way?
I mean, I would say fear has a lot to do with it. I don't know. And I think there's a lot of complexity in that question, and it's very individual and situation based. But if I'm going to generalize it, I would say fear. And it may be fear of the unknown, right? That's a very common one. But I think another big one that isn't really talked about a lot or thought about a lot is, what are you afraid it's going to mean about you? That perceived definition we have of ourselves, if it threatens that sense of identity, we're making up a story that it means something about us. We're not smart enough. We're not capable enough. We're not whatever, fill in the blank enough, or it's not safe for me to do that, or I could lose people, or I could hurt people, or whatever that is for the person. So I think it's fear of the unknown and also fear of whatever our subconscious mind is making it mean about us.
That's a very interesting and profound point because I think so many times when we're making a decision, we have fear, we acknowledge the fear. And I always tell people like the fear doesn't go away. You
No.
just learn to take it with you, right? So you embrace the fear as much as you can. You move forward one step at a time. You take action, you decide, you cut. I love that. But then it's a shift in the identity of self. And I think that's what you're referring to, how you've put it. And I talk about this in the book is that we are not just scared of the thing, the event, the new job, the new situation, moving countries, whatever the thing is, but it's in return our identity to the attached thing that we're letting go of, or the attachment towards the new thing that we're going to have, right? The new position. And I think we're scared of change, we're scared of failure, but we're even scared of success. When I talk about that, I think it's because it's revealing a new identity, and that identity is new to us. And like you said, the brain is a prediction machine and like certainty. Let's go deeper on that. So when we're noticing this about ourselves, so we get a new job opportunity and it's, so exciting, but now we got to relocate and we're not going to know people there and we're not going to have friends and family. What is it revealing to us in that state? So I'm going to assume that I would feel like I don't belong, that I, don't have a support system, that I'm lonely, that I have to start again. So I could get into that negative mindset and it could keep me stuck and not take that dream job. Or if I do some neuro coaching, how would I rewire my brain to look at that as like a win-win-win?
That's a great question. And I think the brain is very brilliant and very clever, and it will pull out all the stops, and the stories that it can make up is really boundless when you're confronted with some data that's coming that you've never experienced before. So you're moving, you're getting this new job. So much uncertainty is around that. And yes, it is tied to your identity, but your brain is making up stories now. I won't fit in. My kids aren't going to like the school there, or whatever it is. But those stories are based on old experiences, old values, probably generational ideas that were just, implanted into your subconscious mind at a very young age. And we think that's the only truth we know, but it's not. There's many, many, many other truths out there. So how would we work through that? It would be collaborating. Sometimes people have a hard time seeing beyond what they know. And so when you work with someone else, you can open up your prefrontal cortex to be more creative and shift that perspective. And my favorite shortcut for shifting a perspective is, what is the exact opposite? Just flip it inside out and upside down, right? So the exact opposite of I won't fit in is I'll never feel more at home. I've never felt more at home than where I'm going. And then it's like, okay, wait, what? It's like a total shakeup. And then you could start to play from there.
I love that. It's a very simple way to get into the positive mindset because our brain is always wired for the negative because it's there to keep you safe.
Yes.
So shifting that. When we're talking about adults, I just got off a call and it was Kathy Oneto, and she talked about sustainable ambition, and she shared that there's development happening in adulthood. And I think it's almost like this missed frame of a reference because we know that we develop in children and adolescence. And then we think, once you're 25, your brain is developed, and we don't continue to develop in adulthood, but we do. And so from a brain perspective, we have new experiences, we form stories to those experiences, we make up new beliefs, and then we make new decisions based on the information. So when we're talking about your prefrontal cortex, what is really happening in the brain when we are rewiring it and we're looking for different evidence, right? So we're looking to make sense of the world.
I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily a brain scientist. I'm more of a neuro coach.
Yes.
So I'm not going to speak out of turn here and talk about
that's fair.
dopamine and, all of those wonderful hormones. But I will say the prefrontal cortex will shut down when we feel like we're in fight or flight. So if we feel triggered, if we feel like that trauma response deep in the throes of fear, that ability to be creative and problem solve and that critical thinking, that shuts down because, again, it's energetic. Our brain wants to keep us safe. If we feel a threat, like a physical threat, like there's a lion or a tiger about to eat us, our brain doesn't care about critical problem solving. It just wants to run, like run, get out of there. So the brain does everything it can to go back to those primal instincts. And it actually takes blood from your organs and puts them to your arms and legs so you can literally run away from danger. So, like, there are chemical things that happen in the body. I'm not a perfect scientist.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But it is very interesting to think about. So I have grown fond of emotional freedom tapping, and there's so many other ways to regulate your nervous system. And when you're able to get yourself into a more calm space, that's when creativity can start to spark again.
Yes, and just your acknowledgement of the fact that when we're overwhelmed, we can't make decisions. I think that is so critical that if we notice that myself, I go through periods where I'm like, I can't decide. I can't even decide what to eat, right? Because I'm so overwhelmed with all of the decisions and working with my team and, making big decisions. Sometimes little decisions are just like stressful, but it's a good warning sign for us. And I talk
Yes.
about this for women is especially is that when we are feeling, but it's men as well, when we are feeling overwhelmed, it's not the best time to make critical decisions, right? You need that space, you need that reset, you need that rest so that you can be productive and you can think clearly. When our brain goes into overwhelm and it starts to shut down, we are often pulling not from the truth, but from different stories that we may have, which also can prevent us from making the best decisions when we move forward. So thanks for speaking to that, because I think that's really an important, valid point that we all need to remember is that when we're in overwhelm and we can't decide, let's just take a pause, right? That's going to be the best reset.
Yes. I will say this literally happened to me this week. So I can really speak to this as someone who coaches others through it. I had some work things that are crumbling, I have my design business and I have my coaching business, and kind of simultaneously things are starting to shift beyond my control. And Monday was the pivotal point. It's Wednesday. So just to put things in perspective.
It's raw.
Yeah, it's raw. And I do this for a living. So it was really interesting for me to find myself in a place of totally fear and overwhelm and scarcity and lack. And I believe in none of those things. I believe in none of those things. But something took over inside of me and I watched it happen. I felt it happen. And I'm so grateful to have the tools that I have because, now 2 days later, I'm like, no, let's go. I'm ready. But I had to give myself space, and I saw my creativity shut down. I saw myself thinking of solutions based on fear, based on misalignment, based on desperation. And I was like, no, I see it happening. I feel it happening, but no, I'm going to take a breath, take a breather. And I focused on regulating my nervous system. I took myself for a walk. I love to move my body. I put myself in nature. That's one of my favorite places to be, is just surrounded by trees and sun and water and birds. And I prioritized that over everything else because I knew that I was at the center and the core of coming out of this on the other side. Once I started to regulate my nervous system and I could feel it, I did some tapping, I did some talking to myself in the mirror, journaling. I was like, now I'm going to do something that maybe feels like a waste of time, but it opens up my creativity, right? So I was like, I redesigned my refrigerator.
Good
I
for you.
got pictures. I know, it's so weird.
I love
It's such a
that.
weird thing, but this is like the realness. Like I really want to share the realness of life right now.
Yeah.
So I did something that like lit me up. I printed out pictures of my family that I love that make me happy, and I like redesigned my refrigerator and made like a visual, beautiful thing that just lit me up from the inside out. And slowly during that time of just keeping myself busy, I put good music on, I lit a candle. I could feel myself coming back home to myself, and I could feel myself easing into, okay, well, what decisions do make sense? What does feel in alignment for my next step? What really is true here? And I could tell you that I'm excited about the change
That's awesome.
coming. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
inspiring, Maria, because I think sometimes too, as coaches, when we have to go through it ourselves and we're like, okay, I know this in theory. I know this is what
Mhm.
I do. This is what's happening. And this is happening because I'm human and my brain's responding this way. It's really humbling and it's also stressful because it's like, I know better. Why don't I do better? Well, I can't do better because I'm in this mode of fight or
Yeah.
flight or overwhelm and our brain starts to act differently. For those people that don't know emotional freedom technique, can you talk to us a little bit about what it is and how it works?
Well, I want to get certified in it. So I don't know for sure, but I know it has to do with the meridians in the body. And maybe you could probably speak to it more from a scientific perspective. But I know I've gone through some sessions with a friend of mine who is certified. And what I experienced as a user of it, being guided, I will say at first I was like, what is happening? Because as a neuro coach, we don't focus on the negatives. Our brain is 9 times more focused on negatives than positives. So that's not something we use to rewire our mind, is never speak in the negative. But the tapping starts in a negative thing and reaffirming your fears and speaking them out loud. And at first I was like, what are you doing? It's a fellow neuro coach who's doing this with me. And I was thinking to myself, like, this is terrible. And after the first round, I could feel whatever my truth was in that moment, heavy, hard. It was like big. And I felt it in my whole body. She's like, okay, we're going to do another round. And by 3 or 4 rounds, that belief was gone. And I have showed up differently without even thinking about it immediately after. It's so powerful. I don't understand the magic behind it, but wow, life
Yeah.
changing.
Yes, and for people that use it, so it is on our meridians and on our chakras in our entire body, and we tap with 2 fingers. You start at the head, usually the crown of the head, and you call out what's actually happening, the fear, the disappointment. So it's like, even though I'm feeling stressed out, so I call it out, I deeply love and respect myself. And
Yes.
so you call out the negative and you say, even though this is happening, I still do this. And so you root that in, because sometimes just avoiding fear doesn't allow fear to go away. And
Mhm.
in my experience and some of the research I've done, it shows that it's the quickest way to get out of the mind, out of the crazy, into the body. And it does calm our nervous system and it does allow our breathing to relax. And then as a result, our minds get clear again. So if you haven't tried emotional freedom technique, it's free, it's easy. You can do videos, there's different points. I remember when I first learned about it, I was like, I'm going to tap so hard to get this out of my body. My coach is like, okay, it doesn't work that way. Like, it's just a gentle tap and it's shifting the awareness and shifting the focus. Maria, you talked a lot about alignment. What does alignment mean to you? And how do we bring ourselves? You mentioned, I brought myself back home. I'm feeling more aligned. It's very powerful. And I think sometimes when we feel lost or stuck and we're making a big decision in life, we don't have that clarity and often we're out of alignment.
The best way that it kind of comes to my mind is, we are born as these innocent beings. And then as we do collect this data, we get layers and layers and shells and masks and like crusty things that just build up around us. They're built to protect us. They're built because our family wanted us to believe it, because society. But as we get older, I think we realize that some of these walls that we've been building or have been put on us aren't serving us anymore. And now they're getting in the way. And so it's just a matter of breaking them down layer by layer, piece by piece, and coming home to the truth of who you've always been on the inside. And I believe that is a direct connection to source, whatever you believe in. I work with a lot of clients with a lot of different religious backgrounds, a lot of different belief systems. I personally believe there's a source and we're connected to it and we're living this human experience, and the human experience comes with density, we'll
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And so that density is a gift if we can allow it. And our power is our power because we are able to shift it. We're able to shift our perspective. We're able to choose. We're able to decide. But I think it's mostly a knowing. If whatever is happening around you feels like fear or feels like lack or feels like doubt, scarcity, that's not truth. If it feels like love, if it feels like expansion, if it feels like possibility, if it feels like home, to me, that's authenticity and that's coming home to yourself.
Yes, beautifully said. I think this ties nicely into one of your favorite quotes by Marianne Williamson. Deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And I think that's so powerful is that when we have that alignment and we have that truth and we are centered in who we are, our brilliance shines. And that can be scary at first. It's like, wow, I am really powerful, or I am really courageous, or I am really bold. But that's how we make movement in the world. That's how we all rise together. And there's room for everyone. It's not I win and you don't have that chance, but it's that mindset and that emerging of one's self. And I like to say it as mind, body, soul, that connection. And it's a feeling, right? It feels more effortless. It feels more peaceful. And in return, you shine brighter, right? Your energy attracts, you resonate at a different frequency. You trust God deeper than you've ever trusted, as an example. So I love that quote as well. Maria, to wrap up, I'd love for you to explain your definition of courage and what it means to you.
Yes, I love this question, and I really thought about it. I didn't use AI, and I didn't do any research. I really turned within when you asked me this question prior. To me, courage is having a really healthy relationship with fear, because we need courage to take action and we need action to feel confident. So I also think courage is the number one prerequisite to confidence.
Yes. I 100% agree. And I tell people that we don't actually need more confidence before we take action. We just need to flex our courage muscle, and that's available to all of us. And confidence is the result of taking action before you feel ready. So it's really cool work, what you do, Maria, and how you show up in this world. I think you're just this bright light. You have so much wisdom. You give so much. Where can people find more about you and your work?
Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Maria Conigliero, and mariaconigliero.com.
Amazing. So if you're looking for a neuro coach, Maria is your person. She can walk you through rewiring your brain to get better results, walk through your limiting beliefs, which we all have. If you're feeling stuck, you want to make a pivotal change, you need to decide, you need to act, you need to cut, and we need to rewire. And that is very powerful. 60 to 70 days. It's not going to be, you said it's simple, but not easy. And I think that's really important to remember, is that change takes time. It can be simple, but it's going to be hard work. And the hard work is going to give us the best results over time. So Maria, thank you so much for sharing your time and your brilliance with us. To all of our listeners, if you've been wondering what has been holding you back, make sure you listen to this episode again, follow Maria, get some insights, and most importantly, learn to trust yourself. Find that alignment, take yourself home, and reach out for help. The best coaches also have coaches, because we are, evolving, and we need to be held accountable so we can reach our next level of growth as well. Have a beautiful day, everyone, and go make that big freaking change. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.